We're good.
Yeah, we are almost there. So it looks like we're live too. Hi, everyone. Hello. This is really excellent. Hi, everyone. We're so excited that you're here. It looks like a few more folks are joining, so we'll give everyone about a minute or so to jump in onto this live stream. But we are all set up and excited for Shark Science Week. But before we get started, if you are watching, go ahead and introduce yourself in the live chat. Hey, Mark. It's so great to see you all. Or I guess I should say, count the numbers trickling in. But we'll get started in just about a minute or so. We have a really, really great program lined up for you all right in time for Shark Science Week. All right, excellent. And we're getting a really good view of our swell sharks here, which is excellent.
Oh, cool.
You are
That's
getting
what
some,
they do.
yeah, you are getting some really great video feed footage from the both of them in our Swell Shark Touch Pool. So let's go ahead and get officially started because we have a lot lined up for you and we want to use as much time as possible. But hi, everyone, and welcome and happy Shark Science Week from the Seymour Marine Discovery Center. My name is Jen Cormier, and this week we are celebrating sharks. We're talking about their adaptations, their behaviors, the species out in the ocean, and really just what makes them so special and so unique. And today, I am joined by Peter Mott, the Seymour Center's Aquarium Curator, to talk all about swell sharks, a species of shark that is on exhibit at the Seymour Center and probably one of my favorite species of all time. So Peter, thank you so much for being here today.
Sure, you're welcome. Swell sharks are awesome.
I'm glad that you feel the same way that I do about swell sharks and how incredible they are. But before I dive into some of the questions and our conversation today, I want to briefly mention that if any of you tuning in today have any questions at all for Peter or any questions about swell sharks, go ahead and add them into the live chat, and Peter and I will be able to get to those today too. And so, you know, Peter, I am just so excited that you're here because you are so knowledgeable about swell sharks, and obviously you work with them every single day, which is probably the best job ever. And just to orient folks about what we're looking at, we have a live look at Peter, which is right near the Swell Shark Touch Pool at the Seymour Center. And then we also have a live feed of the swell sharks too. So keep an eye on them because this is probably the most active that you are going to see them. Usually they're not very active, and we'll get to that in a little bit as to why. But Peter, my first question for you is, you know, swell sharks, we love them so much, and they're on exhibit at the Seymour Center. They're pretty common out in the Monterey Bay, but a lot of people don't know about swell sharks or don't know about this species. And so can you briefly describe a little bit more about their physical appearance to someone who's never seen them before?
Sure. I mean, as you can see here, they are sort of a light brown color with dark saddles on their back, dark blotches, and then a bunch of even darker little spots all over their body. They're relatively small. They get to about 1 meter long, so just over 3 feet. And they spend a lot of time resting on the seafloor. They're not the fastest swimmers, but they're good at what they do. You can see one here, I think, in the video right now, kind of cruising around its tank that we have here in the Seymour Center. But they do a lot of what the other one is doing, which is kind of hang out and rest.
Yeah, definitely. And so their coloration, I mean, even though it's brown, but it's speckled and it's really, really beautiful. But sorry, they just came and sat right on top of one another. It's very funny. But their coloration is, it's really beautiful to me, even though, you know, some people think brown is drab. But where do the swell sharks live out in the wild, and how does this brown coloration help them in their environment?
So these are coastal sharks, so relatively near shore coastal sharks. We have them along California coast here. Way north, I can't even remember how far north. Oh, actually, yes, I do. Never mind. Monterey Bay is actually at the top of their range. So we're lucky to have them in our bay here. That's the reported top of the range. They do extend down into Mexico, I think Acapulco. And then there are more along the coast of Chile. So kind of interesting. But near shore habitat, relatively shallow, you know, I think down to 1,000 feet is what the literature says, but they're often found a lot shallower than that. The coloration helps them. You can see that nice mottled coloration. You can imagine that might help them blend in to rocky structures or rocky reef habitat. But they also have that neat thing that researchers discovered a few years back called biofluorescence, which is neat. You want to go into that?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that is one of the questions too that we got from someone. They asked if swell sharks, quote unquote, glow in the dark or give off a greenish hue. And so if you could talk about that a little bit more, that would be awesome.
This is a cool, relatively recent discovery. These fish, these cartilaginous fish, the swell sharks, biofluoresce. Fluorescence is when you, when in this case, a molecule or the molecule in their skin is exposed to a blue wavelength, the light is absorbed and reflected back at a wavelength that has a little less energy in it. And in this case, it would be green. So with the right lens over our eyes as humans, we can kind of get an idea of what the sharks might see themselves. Within their own lens, they have what appears to be some filtering, some light filtering properties that would allow them to see the fluorescent color, but you need that lens modification to see that color. So
Gotcha.
It's kind of a cool thing. It's turning out that a lot of marine organisms are using biofluorescence, and we're just now discovering some of them, how many there are, which is kind of cool.
Definitely. No, that's incredible. So they don't really glow in the dark per se, but they can give off that kind of, they do biofluoresce. And so humans can't see it. We just need to have that modified lens like the sharks do. Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well,
and so the thought is maybe they use it to identify each other. Could be a possibility. Those are some theories, or maybe it helps them hide some from others, from potential predators. So we don't know. That's what science is about, trying to figure out more as we go.
Yeah, definitely. That's why science is so great. And so, Peter, when we were talking about biofluorescence, the sharks were up to something pretty funny. So one of the sharks had a really, really great view of the mouth. And so you could really see into the mouth, see all of those teeth in there. And it looked like their teeth were pretty small. And so what do these swell sharks commonly eat out in the wild, but also here at the Seymour Center too?
Yeah, those teeth are sharp but tiny. So they're good at just grasping the food long enough for the animal to get the food item in its mouth and swallow it without it escaping. In the wild, they eat a lot of bony fishes, so smaller fishes, anything that fits into their mouth. I saw one eat a rockfish once, a fairly large rockfish. So if it fits in the mouth, it's probably good for dinner. And a lot of crustaceans for this guy. So that's wild diet. And then here at the Seymour Center, we use currently night smelt, which is a locally collected smelt, a little small silvery bait fish, squid, and also prawns.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah. And so we keep talking about how this is probably as active that you will see swell sharks. And so why is that? Are they, not active in the morning? Are they only active at night? Are they active at weird parts of the day? Like, what is their usual behavior?
They tend to be more active during the evening for sure. In the wild, they'll be hunkered down during the day, hiding in crevices, waiting to come out during the evening to find something to eat on nearby reefs
Yeah,
or within
definitely.
the reef. Yeah.
Definitely. And so as the sharks moved out of the way of the footage, this actually gives us a
Yeah.
really great view of another thing that's in the exhibit. And it kind of, it's like a greenish, it's, you know, it's kind of looks like a Percy almost, right? It's kind of has a greenish yellow.
Yeah.
What is that?
that is one of their egg cases. The two swell sharks that we have in this particular pool are both female. And even though there is no male in there to fertilize these eggs, they still lay the egg cases pretty regularly. And those look, oops, can you hear me? Those look pretty freshly laid. They're more kind of a yellowy color, and they sort of darken amber as they're in the water for a longer period of time. So they'll lay between 2 and 4 of those per session. We have egg laying pretty much throughout the year with these two. And the egg case is just this cool little leathery feeling. It's a little, yeah, it's like a leather. It's a keratinized compound, the keratinized material feels like your fingernail in a way. So that's the egg case itself. And then within it is the egg with the yolk. If they were fertilized, or if there's other development, which can sometimes happen without fertilization, which is a different story, this species takes between, it's usually 7, we say 7 and 10 months for development, but it depends on water temperature, and that's within their whole range as a species. Here it's between like 9 and 10 months, because we're typically colder at their northern end of their range here in Central California, Central Coast. But we had an egg hatch here once from a fertilized egg, a fertilized event that took 12 months to hatch. So it's neat stuff. 12 months, you're just an embryo in your egg case. If you're a swelled shark, well, not typically 12, but 7 to 10, where all your nutrients for your entire development before you hatch is contained in that egg with you.
Wow, that is incredible. And so swell sharks, they lay eggs, but that's really unique, or I would say that's something that's really interesting in the shark world, right? Because some sharks lay eggs, some sharks give live birth, some sharks do a little combination of each.
Yeah.
So that's really, really cool.
It is cool. I mean, there are a good number of sharks that are egg layers, but predominantly they're doing live birth.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so swell sharks, that's a really unique name to me, or it seems a little unusual because it's swell, right? And so why are they called swell sharks? Does it give some sort of hint as to what they do out in the wild, or where they live, or why are they called swell sharks?
It's not the old, is it 1950s, like everything's swell, like it's great, which is true too. They are great. But in this case, swell means puffing up large, maybe like a puffer fish, where they bring in water, they swallow water essentially to make themselves bigger. And by doing that, they can wedge themselves in crevices and make it very difficult for a potential predator, maybe a larger shark or like a pinniped, sea lion or something, to pull them out of the crevice. It would be more difficult to pull them out if they're wedged in, because they're all inflated full of water.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. And so where does that water go? Is it just in their like esophagus or in their stomach? I couldn't even imagine. It's like swallow.
Stomach, they swallow it. And there is we'd have to look at their anatomy drawings, but there's like a pocket in there where the water, it's an out pocketing of the stomach as far as I remember correctly.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And now you get a really, really good look at the swell shark coloration in that cam and some of those, that's the speckly nature too. But also, so Peter, I only have 2 more questions for you. I know that you are a very, very busy person taking care of not only the swell sharks, but making all of the other animals too at the Seymour Center. So one of my last remaining questions for you is, we always heard the myth that sharks have to continue to swim in order to breathe. But as I'm looking at the swell shark footage right now, you can really see those gills moving. And so
you can really see them.
Yeah. So how are these sharks, they're laying on the bottom of the exhibit, but they're still breathing. So what's going on?
There's so some sharks do indeed need to keep moving to breathe because they're using a term called ram ventilation, where they swim with their mouths open. So the water enters the mouths in that way and then passes through the gills. The shark that we just had on the camera there, though, is opening and closing its mouth, and the mechanics of the cavity, the mouth and the throat, allow it to create suction in and then blow it out the gill slits. So it's actually pumping water through the gill slits. So that is one of those myths. They don't need to, well, some species don't need to move in order to breathe.
Yeah, gotcha. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And so my last question that I have for you today is, do you have any myths about swell sharks, or maybe just sharks in general, that you want to finally put to rest and completely debunk?
I think it's the bigger myth about sharks is that they're man eaters, or they're out to get us. That's not the case. There's few incidences where shark and humans come together, and there definitely are issues where humans may be in a bad situation for sure. But for the most part, sharks are just being sharks. They're great predators in our ocean environment, and we really need to do what we can to protect them.
Yeah, definitely. And Peter, I know I said last question, but can you remind me how many shark species there are out in the wild that we have discovered so far? It's a pretty big range, right? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think sharks, there was around 500, I think, that we recognize. There are other elasmobranchs, other species of cartilaginous fish that would make that number larger: skates and rays, chimeras, yeah.
That's incredible.
I think that's about right.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I'm really glad that you keep talking about this as a cartilaginous fish, right? And so
yeah,
cartilage, right? When we wiggle our nose or wiggle our ears, we're feeling our cartilage. And so the swell sharks have that skeleton made up of that same material that we find in our nose and our ears. Well, that's really, really wonderful.
Allows them to be a little lighter in the water and help maintain buoyancy. If you have the heavy bone, you'd have to spend more energy swimming to keep yourself up or find other sort of compensation.
Definitely. And you can kind of see that in the footage too. You see some of the sharks when they're swimming around a little bit during their activity this morning. Well, Peter.
Yeah, and these aren't skinny sharks either. They're definitely well cared for.
That's awesome. Well, Peter, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today and giving us some really, really great information about swell sharks, about what they eat, about biofluorescence, about their crazy ability to swell up to twice their size. It was really awesome to hear from you, but also to see these sharks up close. I know that I miss them, and I know that our viewers miss them too. So I can't thank you enough for being here with us this morning and doing this with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I also want to say a big thank you to all of our viewers that have tuned in this morning too. We just so appreciate your support, and we are so happy that we can continue to show how scientific research plays a role in the understanding and conservation of the world's oceans, all while online and staying virtual. And so it's really folks like you that are tuning in today that make these public programs possible, as well as virtual Shark Science Week. So if you're in the position, I do ask that you consider making a donation to the Seymour Center or becoming a member with us. You can find all that information on our website, seymourcenter.ucsc.edu, or you can go ahead and click on the links in the video description below. And the Seymour Center is celebrating Shark Science Week all week long. So be sure to also check out our website for more shark-related activities. But we also have another live shark event coming up on Thursday, August 13th at 11 a.m. where we will be talking with Melissa Cronin, who is doing really, really awesome conservation work with rays, a species of cartilaginous fish, and sharks. So we're excited to talk to her as well. Again, go to our website for more information. And I can watch this Swell Shark cam all day long.
Well, I'm gonna, if we have another minute, I don't know if we do, I'm gonna see if one's hungry, but if you want.
A treat?
This program coincides with their feeding, so we can see if they're gonna be responsive, and it looks like they're going to be. We have squid and smelt on the menu. I guess I'm gonna move this back. I don't know if this is gonna
be folks.
Helpful at all. You can kind of at least see where I am, but.
Definitely. So folks, this is a huge treat. This is very exciting. We are I thought we were signing off. We are so lucky to see a feeding. So
okay, just
Peter,
a little bit of food prep today. Smelt, very yummy. Silver smelt and market squid. All the raw good stuff. Here's a head. Oh, those are good. Okay. So what we'll do is, while you're talking, I'm just going to try to get them in front of the camera here.
Definitely. That sounds great. This is really wonderful. So you all got to see the food up close, which is so great. But as Peter is feeding, you'll notice that he's using these tongs to feed the sharks. And so, Peter, can you talk a little bit more about why you would be using these tongs?
Yeah, I like to use the tongs to, keep our hands away from their mouths while we're feeding. It's just good practice.
Definitely.
And let's see.
So everyone is getting a really, really good look at their teeth and their huge mouth that they have. But you're also getting a really, really good look at their eye too, which is great.
Well, not as hungry for squid, but this happens. We feed 3 to 4 times a week. So they will definitely know if they're hungry. They'll let us know if they're hungry or not.
Definitely.
And we'll see if somebody wants the smelt.
This might seem like a silly question, Peter, but do the sharks have a preference for which food item they receive?
It definitely changes. They seem to go in cycles where they prefer one food item over another.
Okay.
We just got in this nice squid recently, so that's why I tried the squid first. Oh, how interesting. The other thing is they've been doing a lot of egg laying, and so the egg laying cycle can influence how they're feeding. Oh, that was good. Okay, one smelt in.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so when I'm looking at this footage of the shark exhibit, I noticed that there are lots of rocks put in a specific place within the exhibit. And so you said earlier that they like to hang out in rocky crevices or tight areas. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the rocks in the pool we put over in that one side does help them gravitate towards that side. We find them resting between the rocks and the side of their pool. They seem to prefer that particular area, and rather than sitting out in the open part of the sand in the same tank.
Wow,
So,
definitely.
yeah,
Definitely.
they definitely like to be sort of in a crevice, sometimes stacked or often stacked on each other. So we'll try one more, maybe in this shark that is still swimming,
That sounds good.
and then we'll let you go. They're a little less hungry than I thought they were going to be, but
No, but it was so
okay.
cool. Oh yeah, there it
That's
goes.
kind of neat. You can kind of see the lower jaw came down, and you can see the swallowing motion.
Definitely.
It's pretty cool. Anyway, there's a little bit of shark feeding.
That's incredible. Well, Peter, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
It's always so fun to see the swell sharks eat. They just have so much more activity, right? So usually when we see them, they're completely motionless.
Yeah.
But it's a real treat to see this all up close. So thank you again for sharing this with us. It was a little extra sweet surprise at the end.
Thanks, Jen. You are awesome. It's always nice to spend a little time with you talking about stuff at the Seymour Center, marine science and whatnot.
Definitely, definitely. Well, again, thank you everyone for tuning in today, and we hope to see you next time. Stay safe and take care. Goodbye, everyone.
Cheers.